So here's my new bullet journal. I bought this from Amazon. It is called the Limomi A5 hardcover dot grid notebook. It has a brown leathery cover, a standard dot grid. I believe it has 180 pages. I haven't counted them. The paperweight is 120 GSM, which I don't know what GSM means, but I do know that 120 means it's a lot heavier than other notebook papers might be. It has an attached bookmark thingy, a pocket in the back, some page divider stickers, an elastic to keep the book closed, and this is pretty much my favorite part. It's got a pen loop attached to the spine of the journal. I'm going to set up my workspace a bit here, so pulling out all of the writing instruments that I use the most frequently when bullet journaling. I have a pencil and eraser, my Faber-Castell pens, my Sakura Pigma brush pens, and a white Jelly Roll pen, and my collection of Staedtler Tri-Plus fineliner pens. I will also use a ruler and a colored pencil, but for some reason I decided not to set them up at this point in time. So the first thing we're going to do is add my name to this book. And then on this next page, we have the key. So the key contains all of the icons that I'll be using throughout my bullet journal. I use open circles, which I believe is a standard bullet journal method icon. In addition, I use triangles to denote events, and I use hearts to denote notes, thoughts, ideas, whatever isn't considered a task or an event. Once the key is all done and nice and neat, we move on to the index. So the index is basically the table of contents for a book. You write down a little descriptor along with a page number for whatever's in your bullet journal. I don't index a lot, so a single spread is enough for me. If you find yourself indexing a lot more, then you might want to give yourself a bit more room. After the index, I'm putting in a grid spacing cheat sheet. So I discovered this while watching one of Amanda Rachel Lee's videos. She's an avid bullet journalist YouTuber, and this is genius. I take no credit for this. This is all her idea, but it has come in so super useful that I'm putting it into this journal. So the way this grid spacing cheat sheet works is you number all of the columns horizontally, all of the rows vertically, and then you give yourself guidelines for dividing the space into halves, thirds, and quarters. And you do this for both vertically and horizontally. And then opposite the grid spacing cheat sheet, I am going to put a motivational quote. And this is new to me. I don't usually do motivational quotes just because I am lazy AF and I usually do not show my bullet journal to anyone, so I'm not trying to dress it up for anyone. I thought I'd give this a go, considering it's a new bullet journal and I'm trying out a video to go along with it. Plus, I've seen it everywhere and I always think it looks super cute and I just have to try it. So it's got sort of like a chalkboard look, again keeping it super simple, just black and white. I feel like I sort of cheated because I basically set this up in Photoshop beforehand and now I'm just literally copying it into my bullet journal. I'm not doing this freehand, there's no freaking way. I will make a hot mess. I chose this quote by Epictetus. I do not know how to say this name. I chose this quote by a Greek philosopher whose name I will not pronounce because I've tried 10 times. It says, "Practice yourself for heaven's sake in little things, then proceed to greater." I like this quote. It sounds sort of like a poem. I think it worked out pretty well. Once the quote is done, we're moving on to the next spread, which will be a future log. A future log is basically a calendar. At least that's what I think of it in my mind. It's a small calendar in your bullet journal just so you remind yourself, oh, yeah, these are the months and days of the year, isn't it? It's also the place to jot down all important upcoming or future events that you don't necessarily have the pages for currently. Again, this is one of those spreads that I don't use too much, especially in the first half of the year, but it seems like as soon as July hits, and especially when the holidays come around, it becomes one of the most important spreads in my journal. I'm denoting all Sundays in red pen, just so it's easier for me to look through the dates. Again, keeping it super simple, black, white, and just a little accent color. After the future log, we have the splash page for the month of July. Monthly splash pages are not usually a thing I do in my bullet journal, but I figured, no, I might as well try something new. The monthly log lists out all the days of that month, so there are 31 days in July, so I'm just going from the top of the page to the bottom. Whatever is in the future log now gets placed in the monthly log, so if I had anything from my July future log, I will migrate them over to my monthly log. I just have the word July written in brush script, which I did a little pencil sketch for myself because, again, I have mediocre calligraphy skills. And then I added these monstera leaves around the page, which I freaking love. I love monstera leaves. One day I will own a monstera plant, but right now we don't have the room for it in my apartment, so it's just gonna live in my bullet journal for now. And this is about the time when I decided I was gonna go with like a leafy sort of theme for the month of July. I also did just buy a bunch of plants to decorate my house and office with, so I think that might have influenced me to doing this. Time for the next spread, and this is one of my favorite spreads. It is my habit tracker spread. I love habit trackers. Before, they used to kind of stress me out because I felt this need that I had to fill in every square. Enough stress where I actually stopped journaling for a few months. But I think I'm in a better mental place now where I'm starting to embrace it as another way of being mindful. And, you know, it's just cool to see what I did fill in the past month and also not beat myself up over it. So I'm writing out the days of the month on the top row. And then on the side, I'm going to be listing out all of the habits that I want to be mindful of practicing throughout the month of July. And then at the bottom, we have a quote from Aristotle, another Greek philosopher whose name I can actually pronounce. And the quote is, "Quality is not an act, it is a habit," which I feel is a very fitting quote for a habit tracker. Green leaves and Greek philosophers are jiving with me right now. And then on the opposite page, I have this idea of a memory wall. Right now, I'm putting down yellow and green gouache strokes on this paper as a sort of leafy wallpaper pattern. This will be where I post some of my Polaroids throughout the month of July. Still an idea for now. I don't have a Polaroid camera. I might end up just printing out some photos and taping them in here later, but I thought it would be a neat thing to have in my journal. I'm going in with my pen on top of the gouache to add in some little leaf lines. I know my current journal would not be able to handle gouache at all, so I'm just happy that I'm able to do this in the first place. After my habit tracker, I have a brain dump spread, which I feel like is self-explanatory. It's basically all of the things in my mind that I need to get onto paper, but can't be bothered to find the perfect place for it. I will just dump it into this spread. Bringing back the monstera leaf motif in this spread, and again, the black rectangle fill with the white text on top. Okay, so after the brain dump spread, I have the daily logs. The daily logs are the meat and potatoes, the potatoes and molasses, the protein and the starch and sugar of this delicious, organized meal of a bullet journal. This is basically where I live my days. I write down everything that needs to happen that day, any events that I know of. So each day of the week gets a half page each. This is enough space for me. I have tried compacting these daily logs onto one spread instead of two, but I found out that I was writing in the margins, basically overflowing into other days, and a half page for each day is enough for me. And keeping this simple and clean, since this is the layout I will be repeating the most for the rest of the month. But I do once again add a little monstera leaf illustration, just because it looks so cute. Now that the daily logs are wrapped up, I am done with my spreads for July. It's time to decorate the cover. Wha-bam, here's my Dymo label maker. We're gonna input 2019, cut it out, and slap it on there. I seriously wasn't kidding. I have the aesthetic sense of a $10 piece of plastic, and I am dang proud of it. And voila, the setup is all done. Here is my current journal that I will be migrating out of. It is a white Leuchtturm journal, and even though the Leuchtturm has more pages, it looks like they're about the same width, but I think that's because the Limomi has thicker pages. And here's the final flip through from my new bullet journal for the month of July and the rest of 2019. Now, this is where I would stop because I'm done with the bullet journaling, but we also have this blank piece of chalkboard that just sits on our wall, and for the past year, it's been empty. Just because, again, I am lazy AF, and sometimes I forget that we even have it. But today, Matt encouraged me to fill it up with something nice. I decided to do a little motivational quote. This quote is from Audrey Hepburn, and it says, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow," which once again is carrying through my leafy green July motif. And now it's not blank, and that makes me happy. Alright, I've set up my new bullet journal, and we've also done a little bit of bonus content with the chalkboard art. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this inspires you to do your own bullet journaling, or at least to practice mindfulness in other ways. And I hope you have a good July.